That is the number. 72 aerial victories, officially credited to Major William Avery Bishop of the Royal Flying Corps, the highest-scoring Allied ace of the entire First World War. Victoria Cross, Distinguished Service Order with Bar, Military Cross, Legion of Honor, a national hero in Canada at a moment when Canada desperately needed one. It is also a number that a small group of RFC officers quietly, methodically, and with considerable professional nerve set out to disprove. Dawn, 2nd June 1917. Filescamp Farm Aerodrome, northern France. Air temperature approximately 7 degrees Celsius, low cloud at roughly 1,200 meters. At 03:57 hours, a single Newport 17 biplane lifts off the airstrip. No formation, no escort, no witness. The aircraft carries one Lewis gun, 97 rounds of ammunition, and one pilot. Bishop lands 87 minutes later with bullet holes in the fuselage, and the claim that he has attacked a German aerodrome behind enemy lines, killed or wounded several pilots on the ground, destroyed 3 aircraft, and fought his way home through multiple aerial engagements. For this sortie, unwitnessed, unverified, and conducted entirely beyond the range of Allied observation, Bishop received the Victoria Cross. The RFC's own investigating officers could find not a single piece of corroborating evidence that the attack ever happened. To understand why the Bishop investigation matters, you must first understand what the Royal Flying Corps needed him to be. By spring 1917, the air war over the Western Front had become a catastrophe measured in weeks, not years. April 1917, known ever after as Bloody April, saw the RFC lose 245 aircraft and 319 aircrew in a single month over Arras. The average life expectancy of a newly arrived pilot at the front was estimated internally at 11 hours of combat flying. 11 hours, not weeks, not missions, hours. Into this environment of industrial attrition entered the concept of the ace. Borrowed from the French système des as, the designation described any pilot credited with 5 or more aerial victories. Aces were not simply skilled aviators. They were propaganda assets. They were proof that individual human excellence could still prevail against the machinery of mass slaughter. They were the faces on recruitment posters, the names in newspapers, the stories that kept enlistment offices functioning. William Bishop was, by any honest measure, a genuinely capable combat pilot. Born in Owen Sound, Ontario, in 1894, he arrived at 60 Squadron RFC in March 1917, flying Newport 17s out of Filescamp Farm near Arras. His early record was legitimate. His tactics were aggressive. His marksmanship was respected by contemporaries. Multiple early victories were confirmed by witnesses or verified by recovered wreckage within Allied lines. Nobody disputes the early kills. Nobody disputes that Bishop could fly and fight. What they dispute is the number. The final number. The 72. And specifically, the single, unwitnessed sortie that earned him the highest military honor the British Crown could award. The RFC's confirmation system for aerial victories was, by any rigorous evidentiary standard, permissive to a fault. A pilot's own statement supported by a wingman's account was frequently sufficient. Aircraft falling behind enemy lines could not be recovered. German loss records, which might have confirmed or denied RFC claims with precision, remained inaccessible to Allied investigators throughout the war. The system was engineered for speed and morale, not forensic accuracy. Air Marshal Arthur Gould Lee, an RFC pilot who flew during the same period and later became a respected aviation historian, wrote in his memoir that the confirmation process was too often a matter of optimism rather than evidence. He was not writing about Bishop specifically. He did not need to be. The problem with Bishop's 2nd June 1917 sortie was not that it was impossible. It was that it was invisible. A solo dawn raid on an active German aerodrome located approximately 17 kilometers behind enemy lines, at low altitude, in poor visibility, lasting 87 minutes total, including transit and return, during which Bishop claimed to have disabled 3 Albatros aircraft on the ground, shot down a 4th in aerial combat, and engaged at least 2 more fighters during his withdrawal. This was not an implausible feat for an exceptional pilot, but it left behind almost nothing. No RFC ground observers logged an aircraft departing Filescamp Farm at 03:57. No anti-aircraft fire was reported over the relevant sector during the attack window. No German squadron records recovered after the armistice showed a dawn aerodrome raid matching Bishop's description anywhere near his stated target area. The aerodrome he most likely attacked, based on his stated heading and elapsed flight time, was Estermel, home base of Jagdstaffel 5. Jasta 5's records for 2nd June 1917 show no attack, no casualties, no damaged aircraft, and no combat report describing engagement with a lone British fighter at dawn. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. German records were incomplete. Some were destroyed. Some were never recovered. Any honest assessment of the Bishop question must hold that caveat with genuine weight. But the absence was not the only problem. It was the ammunition drum. When Bishop landed at 05:24, his ground crew inspected the aircraft. The bullet holes were recorded. The Lewis gun drum was assessed. The most consistently cited figure from that inspection places approximately 60 to 65 rounds remaining, meaning Bishop had fired somewhere between 32 and 37 rounds during the entire 87-minute sortie. 32 to 37 rounds. For 3 aircraft strafed on the ground, 1 shot down in the air, 2 more engaged in a running withdrawal fight. Cecil Lewis, a pilot with 56 Squadron RFC, who later wrote Sagittarius Rising, one of the most precise first-person accounts of RFC combat flying ever published, calculated that a successful air engagement at typical combat range consumed a minimum of 50 to 80 rounds. A low-altitude strafing run against aircraft on a defended aerodrome, against alert ground fire, required deliberate and sustained bursts. The arithmetic of Bishop's claimed ammunition expenditure does not match the arithmetic of his claimed combat sequence. It was Lieutenants W.J. Fry and W.A. Bond, experienced 60 squadron pilots, who first raised these inconsistencies formally with their commanding officer. Their concerns were not dismissed. They were escalated. An informal investigating panel was assembled within the RFC, not to prosecute Bishop, but to establish what could and could not be corroborated before the Victoria Cross recommendation proceeded to final endorsement. The panel found nothing it could positively confirm. It also found nothing sufficient to formally deny the claim. The evidence was not exculpatory. It was simply absent, and in the institutional calculus of 1917, absence of disproof was enough. The Victoria Cross was gazetted on 11 August 1917. The citation was carefully managed. It described Bishop's conduct in heroic language that was deliberately imprecise where precision mattered most. No aerodrome was named. No German unit was cited. Hostile aircraft appeared in the aggregate. The citation was drafted to be irrefutable because it committed to nothing verifiable. Bishop returned to Canada as a hero of empire. He toured factories and universities. He gave speeches. He filled recruitment halls. He was precisely what the RFC needed, at precisely the moment they needed him most. In 1985, the National Film Board of Canada released a documentary called The Kid Who Couldn't Miss, directed by Paul Cowan. It was not a tribute. It was a forensic ray examination of Bishop's record, drawing on RFC documents, German aviation archives, and the testimony of surviving contemporaries. Its conclusions were, in the gentlest possible language, corrosive to the Bishop legend. The reaction was a national emergency. Veterans organizations demanded the film's withdrawal. The Canadian Senate convened a special subcommittee. Senator Heath Macquarie delivered a 47-page formal rebuttal to the film's methodology. The National Film Board added a disclaimer. The controversy ran for the better part of a decade. It revealed, more clearly than the film itself, that the question had never been settled, not in 1917, not in the intervening decades, and not now. Mick Mannock, the British ace who died in July 1918 with a credited total of 61 victories, itself contested, wrote in a letter recovered after his death, "I'm fighting for my life. Bishop is fighting for his reputation, and the newspapers are fighting for circulation. None of us is fighting for the same thing." Whether Mannock meant Bishop specifically or the entire architecture of wartime aerial heroism is unclear. Both readings cut with equal precision. Bishop gave an interview late in his life in which he said, "People ask me about the details of my fights, and I find I cannot always remember them accurately." He attributed this to the compressed, adrenaline-saturated nature of combat flying. His critics attributed it to something else entirely. He died in Palm Beach, Florida, on 11 September 1956. He was 62 years old. He left no confession, no retraction, no final accounting. He left 72 victories on the official record, and the knowledge that the officers who flew beside him could not confirm them. Return to that Newport 17:03:57 hours, 2nd June 1917. 1 aircraft, 1 pilot, 97 rounds of ammunition. And the dark over France. Whatever happened during those 87 minutes, and the honest answer is that we do not know, the story of the Bishop investigation is not ultimately about one man's courage or one man's deception. It is about what institutions require of their heroes and what that requirement costs on both sides of the transaction. The RFC in 1917 needed 72. It needed the highest Allied ace. It needed the Victoria Cross sortie to be real because the alternative, that its most celebrated aviator was built partly on unverifiable claims, was a cost it could not absorb publicly while losing 319 men in a single month over Arras. Historians Dan McCaffrey and Brereton Greenhiss, in the most rigorous academic examinations of Bishop's record, both concluded that his total was almost certainly inflated by a meaningful margin, that the 2nd June sortie cannot be verified, and that the Victoria Cross citation was approved in the knowledge that it could not be corroborated. Neither concluded Bishop was a coward. Neither dismissed his legitimate victories. Both concluded that the number 72 served a purpose that had nothing to do with accuracy. The officers who first raised the inconsistencies, Fry and Bond, filing their concerns in proper form, demonstrated a particular kind of courage that history rarely celebrates, not the courage of the cockpit, the courage of the filing cabinet, the courage to formally question the nation's most celebrated aviator in wartime, knowing the answer would be decided by institutional necessity rather than evidence. They raised it anyway. It went nowhere. They raised it anyway. 72 aerial victories, the highest Allied ace of the First World War. A number that was, at minimum, unverifiable, at maximum, something more troubling than that. The Newport 17 that lifted off Filescamp Farm at 03:57 on 2 June 1917 carried 97 rounds. The ground crew counted what came back. Somewhere between those two numbers lies not just a question about one pilot's record, but a question about every record an institution has ever needed to be true. You can investigate the legend. You can count the rounds, examine the archives, submit the formal concern. The legend will survive. It always does. Because the legend was never about the man, it was about what we required the man to have done, so that the 11-hour life expectancy, the 319 dead in a single month, the full arithmetic of what the Western Front actually was, could be endured by the people still flying through it. Bishop may or may not have done what he claimed that morning. But the RFC needed him to have done it. And that need is the most truthful thing about the entire story,